When the conscious mind rests, the constant noise finally fades. The voice that questions everything, analyzes every detail, and tries to control every outcome slowly becomes quiet. This is not weakness, this is access. The conscious mind is designed to protect patterns, not to create transformation. It keeps repeating what is familiar because familiarity feels safe, even when it is painful. Real change cannot enter while this guard is standing alert. It enters only when the guard steps aside. The subconscious does not argue. It does not ask for proof. It does not compare past failures with future possibilities. It absorbs. This is why moments of deep relaxation, stillness, and sleep are more powerful than hours of forced motivation. When the conscious mind rests, the subconscious opens like fertile ground. Whatever reaches it in this state becomes instruction, not suggestion. Throughout the day, the conscious mind filters everything. It decides what is possible and what is not based on old experiences. If something once hurt you, it marks it as dangerous. If something once failed, it labels it unrealistic. This filtering creates a narrow version of life where growth feels heavy and change feels distant. At night, this filter weakens. The mind stops defending old stories, and the deeper layer becomes reachable. The subconscious is responsible for habits, emotional reactions, self-image, and identity. It controls how you respond before you even think. That response was not chosen in the moment, it was learned long ago. Trying to change behavior while the subconscious remains unchanged is like steering a ship while the engine pulls in another direction. Effort increases, frustration grows, and results stay the same. When the conscious mind rests, the subconscious begins to listen, not to logic but to feeling, not to force but to repetition. This is why calm words, steady rhythm, and simple truths sink deeper at night than intense speeches do during the day. The subconscious does not respond to urgency, it responds to consistency. Most people try to change their lives by attacking the surface. They try to think positively while feeling unsafe inside. They try to act confident while carrying old fear in the body. This creates internal conflict. The subconscious always wins these battles because it controls energy, not just thought. Rest is the doorway where that conflict dissolves. In rest, the body softens. Muscles release tension they have been holding unconsciously. Breathing deepens. The nervous system shifts from survival to recovery. In this state, the subconscious is no longer preparing for threat. It becomes receptive to new direction. This is not imagination. This is biology working in harmony with awareness. When the conscious mind steps back, identity loosens. You are no longer defending who you think you are. This allows new self-perception to form without resistance. The subconscious does not need you to believe immediately. It only needs exposure. What is heard repeatedly in safety becomes familiar. What becomes familiar eventually becomes normal. What becomes normal becomes automatic. This is why effortless change always looks slow from the outside, but feels natural from the inside. There is no dramatic push, no internal violence. Old patterns fade not because they are fought, but because they are no longer fed. New patterns rise not because they are forced, but because space was created for them. When rest becomes intentional, it turns into training. Sleep is no longer escape, it becomes alignment. The mind learns without strain. The body follows without resistance. The subconscious reshapes the direction quietly, invisibly, steadily, adjusting perception, reaction, and expectation beneath awareness, forming a new baseline from which thoughts, choices, and emotions begin to arise without effort, without tension, without the need to convince, because the instruction has already been accepted at a level deeper than thought. Resistance is often misunderstood as strength. People believe that holding on tightly, pushing harder, and refusing to let go will protect them from loss and failure. In reality, resistance is the reason most lives feel heavy and repetitive. It is the silent force that keeps the same patterns alive while convincing the mind that effort alone will bring change. Resistance does not appear as fear at first, it appears as control. Control is the attempt to force life to behave in a predictable way. It comes from past pain, disappointment, and moments where trust was broken. The mind learns that surrender equals danger, so it builds tension instead. This tension feels productive, but it drains energy. Every time you try to manage every outcome, you create pressure between what is happening and what you want to happen. That pressure becomes frustration. Life does not respond to pressure. It responds to direction and openness. When you resist what is, you close yourself to what could be. Resistance narrows perception. It locks attention onto problems instead of possibilities. The more you fight circumstances, the more your identity becomes attached to struggle, and struggle starts to feel normal. Surrender is not giving up. It is releasing the need to fight reality in order to feel safe. When you surrender, you stop arguing with the present moment. This does not mean you approve of everything that happens. It means you stop wasting energy trying to deny what already exists. In that release, clarity appears. When resistance drops, the nervous system relaxes. The body no longer stays in a constant state of defense. Muscles soften, breathing deepens, and the mind becomes more flexible. In this state, solutions that were invisible before begin to appear naturally. Surrender creates space, and space invites movement. Most people try to surrender with the mind, while the body is still holding fear. True surrender happens when the body feels safe enough to let go. This safety is not created by thinking differently, it is created by stopping the internal fight. Once the fight stops, energy that was locked in tension becomes available for growth. Resistance keeps repeating the past. It uses old experiences as proof that the future must look the same. Surrender allows the present moment to stand on its own. It breaks the habit of projecting yesterday's pain onto tomorrow's possibility. In this openness, life gains room to reorganize itself. Balmalaban happens when you stop pulling against the flow of events. Like swimming upstream, resistance exhausts you without taking you anywhere new. When you turn and allow the current to carry you, movement becomes effortless. This does not mean you lose direction. It means direction becomes natural instead of forced. Surrender also changes how you respond to challenges. Instead of reacting emotionally, you respond consciously. You stop taking everything personally. You stop seeing obstacles as threats and begin to see them as information. This shift alone changes outcomes without needing external effort. When resistance fades, intuition becomes clearer. You start sensing when to act and when to wait. Decisions feel lighter because they are no longer driven by fear. You trust timing instead of trying to dominate it. This trust is not blind faith. It is awareness sharpened by stillness. Life begins to meet you halfway when you stop pushing against it. Opportunities that once felt distant start appearing without force. Conversations change. Circumstances shift subtly, not because you demanded change, but because you allowed space for it to occur. Surrender removes the internal barrier that was blocking flow, allowing energy to move freely again, reshaping experience through ease rather than effort, guiding actions from calm awareness instead of tension, dissolving struggle at its source, and opening the path where life can finally move without resistance. Repetition is the language of the subconscious. It does not respond to intensity or logic. It responds to what it hears and feels consistently. A single powerful thought during the day may inspire you, but it rarely rewires you. The subconscious learns the same way the body learns, through rhythm, familiarity, and exposure. What repeats becomes known. What becomes known becomes trusted. During waking hours, repetition struggles to reach deep layers of the mind. The conscious mind interrupts, doubts, and compares. It analyzes meaning and questions intention. This mental noise weakens repetition. At night, when the body relaxes and the conscious mind softens, repetition moves freely. There is less resistance, fewer filters, and more receptivity. This sleep is not a shutdown. It is a doorway. As the brain shifts into slower rhythms, the subconscious becomes more accessible. In this state, repetition does not feel forced. It feels natural, almost invisible. Words, sounds, and ideas slip past defenses and settle deeper than effort ever could. Beliefs are not chosen, they are installed. Most beliefs were formed before awareness existed. They were repeated by environment, experience, and emotion. This is why trying to argue with a belief rarely works. Logic cannot remove what repetition built. Only repetition can replace repetition. When you repeat calm, supportive messages during sleep, you are not trying to convince yourself. You are familiarizing the subconscious with a new pattern. Familiarity reduces fear. Fear is what keeps old beliefs alive. Once fear dissolves, the belief loses its grip. Repetition during sleep works because the emotional body is relaxed. There is no need to defend identity. The mind is not trying to protect old stories. In this softness, the subconscious absorbs without tension. It does not evaluate whether something is deserved or realistic. It simply receives. This is why transformation through sleep feels effortless. There is no internal battle, no pushing against doubt, no self-criticism. The change happens beneath awareness, where habits and reactions are formed. By the time you notice the shift, it has already become natural. Most people underestimate the power of small, repeated input. They look for dramatic breakthroughs while ignoring quiet consistency. The subconscious does not need drama. It needs safety and repetition. Gentle words repeated nightly can do more than intense effort repeated occasionally. As repetition reshapes belief, behavior follows automatically. You begin to respond differently without planning to. You feel calmer in situations that once triggered you. You hesitate less. You trust more. These changes feel like personality shifts, but they are simply new defaults being installed. Repetition also reshapes self-image. The way you see yourself determines what you allow into your life. When the subconscious repeatedly hears messages of worth, safety, and capability, it updates its internal map. Opportunities no longer feel threatening. Growth no longer feels overwhelming. This process does not require belief at the beginning. Doubt does not block repetition. Resistance does. Sleep removes resistance. This is why listening while falling asleep is more effective than affirmations spoken with effort during the day. Effort signals lack. Repetition signals normality. Over time, the subconscious stops distinguishing between inner voice and external input. What is repeated becomes internal dialogue. This new dialogue quietly influences perception, choices, and emotional responses. Life begins to shift not because you forced change, but because your internal environment changed first. Repetition during sleep is not about escaping reality. It is about rewriting the internal lens through which reality is experienced. When that lens changes, the same world produces different outcomes. You are no longer fighting old patterns. You are outgrowing them, allowing new rhythms to take their place, guiding actions from ease instead of tension, shaping identity from within, and creating transformation that feels natural, steady, and inevitable. The outer world is a mirror, not a source. Most people spend their lives trying to rearrange reflections without realizing what creates them. They chase better circumstances, different people, new locations, and improved outcomes, believing that once the outside changes, the inside will finally feel at peace. This approach keeps them exhausted because it reverses cause and effect. The inner state comes first, and the outer reality follows. Your inner state is made of emotional tone, self-perception, and expectation. It is not what you say you want. It is what you quietly assume will happen. These assumptions operate beneath conscious thought. They shape how you interpret events, how you respond under pressure, and what opportunities you even notice. Two people can experience the same situation and walk away with completely different results because their inner states are different. Hard work is often praised as the solution to everything, but hard work without inner alignment creates resistance. When effort is driven by fear, lack, or the need to prove worth, it produces tension. That tension leaks into actions, words, and decisions. People sense it. Situations respond to it. The work may be intense, but the results remain limited because the energy behind the effort is conflicted. When the inner state is calm and grounded, action becomes clean. There is no desperation attached to outcomes. You do what needs to be done without emotional weight. This clarity sharpens focus and improves timing. You say less but mean more. You move with precision instead of urgency. From the outside, it looks like things are falling into place effortlessly. The outer world does not respond to what you want, it responds to what you expect. Expectation is quieter than desire. Desire shouts, while expectation assumes. When you expect difficulty, you unconsciously prepare for struggle. Your body tightens, your perception narrows. You miss openings that don't match your expectation. When you expect ease, your system relaxes. You become receptive. Solutions appear because you are available to see them. This is why people who seem less skilled sometimes succeed more easily than those who work harder. Their inner state is not filled with resistance. They are not fighting themselves while moving forward. Their actions flow from confidence, not compensation. They are aligned internally, so the outer world cooperates. Trying to fix the outer world without addressing the inner state is like trying to calm water by hitting the surface. The disturbance increases. Real change happens when the source settles. When the inner state shifts, reactions soften. You stop over-interpreting setbacks. You recover faster. You remain centered even when outcomes are uncertain. The inner state also determines boundaries. When you feel worthy inside, you do not tolerate what drains you. When you feel safe within yourself, you do not cling to what harms you. These changes happen naturally, without rehearsed confidence. Your behavior adjusts because your baseline has changed. This shift does not mean effort disappears. It means effort becomes aligned. You still take action, but the action is guided by clarity instead of pressure. You no longer chase every possibility. You recognize what resonates and what doesn't. This discernment saves energy and attracts better results. The outer world is highly responsive to consistency. When your inner state is stable, your signals are clear. Mixed signals come from mixed inner states. Clarity inside creates clarity outside. People respond differently. Opportunities present themselves differently. Even challenges change shape because you meet them from a grounded place. When you understand that your inner state is the foundation, you stop blaming circumstances. You stop waiting for permission from the outside. You begin to cultivate stillness, awareness, and alignment internally, knowing that every shift there echoes outward, shaping experiences without force, without constant effort, without chasing outcomes, allowing life to reorganize itself around a center that is no longer dependent on struggle or validation. Letting go of control feels threatening to the mind because control has been mistaken for safety. The mind believes that if it stops managing every detail, something will fall apart. This belief was learned through moments of uncertainty, loss, or unpredictability. Over time, control became a habit, not a choice. It shaped how decisions were made, how relationships were handled, and how the future was imagined. Control creates the illusion of power, but it also creates constant tension. Every attempt to control an outcome tightens the body and narrows perception. You become focused on preventing what you fear instead of allowing what you need. This tension blocks flow. Life begins to feel heavy because every step requires mental force. Flow is not laziness. It is intelligent movement without resistance. When you let go of control, you are not abandoning responsibility. You are releasing the need to dominate every outcome. This shift allows you to respond instead of react. Response comes from awareness. Reaction comes from fear. When control loosens, the nervous system relaxes. The body stops bracing against imagined threats. Breathing deepens. The mind becomes clearer. In this state, intuition becomes accessible. You start sensing timing rather than forcing action. You recognize when to move and when to pause. This sensitivity creates alignment. Letting go of control also changes how you relate to uncertainty. Instead of seeing uncertainty as danger, you begin to see it as space. Space for possibilities you could not plan. Space for outcomes beyond your limited perspective. Control limits life to what the mind can predict. Release opens life to what the mind could never design. Many people fear letting go because they think it means losing direction. In truth, direction becomes clearer. When the noise of overthinking fades, subtle signals become noticeable. You notice what feels right instead of what looks correct. Decisions feel lighter because they are not burdened by fear of failure. Damaladin happens when actions are in harmony with inner clarity. This harmony cannot be forced. It emerges when resistance dissolves. When you stop pushing against life, life begins to move with you. This cooperation creates momentum that feels natural instead of exhausting control, often shows up as attachment to outcomes. You decide how something must happen and when. This attachment creates disappointment because reality rarely follows mental timelines. Letting go does not mean you stop having intentions. It means you stop demanding specific forms. Intention sets direction. Attachment creates tension. When attachment fades, patience grows. You trust the process because you are no longer measuring worth by immediate results. You understand that timing is part of intelligence. Rushing disrupts alignment. Waiting with awareness strengthens it. Letting go of control also transforms relationships. You stop trying to manage how others think or feel. You communicate more honestly and listen more openly. Conflict reduces because you are no longer defending an image. You allow people to be as they are, and this creates respect. As control dissolves, self-trust increases. You realize that you can handle what arises without micromanaging life. This trust is quiet but powerful. It removes the need for constant reassurance. You become steady in uncertainty. Flow becomes your default state. You act when needed and rest when needed. Effort is balanced with ease. Life feels responsive instead of resistant. Opportunities appear through connection rather than chase. You move with situations instead of against them, guided by clarity rather than fear, allowing alignment to shape outcomes naturally, freeing energy that was trapped in control, and opening a path where life unfolds with cooperation, timing, and effortless direction. Letting go of control feels threatening to the mind because control has been mistaken for safety. The mind believes that if it stops managing every detail, something will fall apart. This belief was learned through moments of uncertainty, loss, or unpredictability. Over time, control became a habit, not a choice. It shaped how decisions were made, how relationships were handled, and how the future was imagined. Control creates the illusion of power, but it also creates constant tension. Every attempt to control an outcome tightens the body and narrows perception. You become focused on preventing what you fear instead of allowing what you need. This tension blocks flow. Life begins to feel heavy because every step requires mental force. Flow is not laziness. It is intelligent movement without resistance. When you let go of control, you are not abandoning responsibility. You are releasing the need to dominate every outcome. This shift allows you to respond instead of react. Response comes from awareness. Reaction comes from fear. When control loosens, the nervous system relaxes. The body stops bracing against imagined threats. Breathing deepens. The mind becomes clearer. In this state, intuition becomes accessible. You start sensing timing rather than forcing action. You recognize when to move and when to pause. This sensitivity creates alignment. Letting go of control also changes how you relate to uncertainty. Instead of seeing uncertainty as danger, you begin to see it as space. Space for possibilities you could not plan. Space for outcomes beyond your limited perspective. Control limits life to what the mind can predict. Release opens life to what the mind could never design. Many people fear letting go because they think it means losing direction. In truth, direction becomes clearer. When the noise of overthinking fades, subtle signals become noticeable. You notice what feels right instead of what looks correct. Decisions feel lighter because they are not burdened by fear of failure. Alignment happens when actions are in harmony with inner clarity. This harmony cannot be forced. It emerges when resistance dissolves. When you stop pushing against life, life begins to move with you. This cooperation creates momentum that feels natural instead of exhausting control, often shows up as attachment to outcomes. You decide how something must happen and when. This attachment creates disappointment because reality rarely follows mental timelines. Letting go does not mean you stop having intentions. It means you stop demanding specific forms. Intention sets direction. Attachment creates tension. When attachment fades, patience grows. You trust the process because you are no longer measuring worth by immediate results. You understand that timing is part of intelligence. Rushing disrupts alignment. Waiting with awareness strengthens it. Letting go of control also transforms relationships. You stop trying to manage how others think or feel. You communicate more honestly and listen more openly. Conflict reduces because you are no longer defending an image. You allow people to be as they are, and this creates respect. As control dissolves, self-trust increases. You realize that you can handle what arises without micromanaging life. This trust is quiet but powerful. It removes the need for constant reassurance. You become steady in uncertainty. Flow becomes your default state. You act when needed and rest when needed. Effort is balanced with ease. Life feels responsive instead of resistant. Opportunities appear through connection rather than chase. You move with situations instead of against them, guided by clarity rather than fear, allowing alignment to shape outcomes naturally, freeing energy that was trapped in control, and opening a path where life unfolds with cooperation, timing, and effortless direction tonight. Remember this: you were never meant to fight your way into a better life. The struggle you've been carrying was never a requirement for growth. It was a misunderstanding of how change truly happens. Real transformation begins when you stop forcing and start allowing, when effort gives way to awareness and control softens into trust. As you rest, your mind learns in silence. As you release resistance, your inner state reorganizes. As repetition settles into the subconscious, old patterns lose their authority without confrontation. Nothing needs to be proven, fixed, or chased. Life responds not to pressure, but to alignment. When you change the way you listen, the way you rest, and the way you let go, your reactions change. When your reactions change, your experiences follow. This is how life shifts effortlessly, not through noise or urgency, but through quiet consistency and inner harmony. So tonight, choose stillness over struggle. Choose trust over control. Let sleep become the doorway, silence the teacher, and ease the guide. When you wake, you may not see fireworks, but you will feel steadier, clearer, and more aligned. And from that alignment, everything else begins to move.